concept that I want to talk to you about today is called a distributed capacity procurement, which I would argue is the least innovative idea you will hear today, which is simply that distributed capacity is a thing that has grid value, and if your grid needs more capacity, you should go procure it. And building lots of small things is easier than building many big things. You can put a lot of these things on buildings, in parking lots, next to houses, and all around the grid, right where they need it most. So just a quick zoom back before I get into what the distributed capacity procurement is and how I think it could bring hundreds of megawatts of utility-led distributed energy resource procurement right here in Santa Barbara to improve the grid. And talk a little bit about SparkFund and who we are. So we've been around since 2013. We have worked exclusively through American Electric Utilities to deploy distributed energy resources on the grid. We've done more than 4,000 projects in 40 states, more than 320 megawatts of energized assets, and many hundreds of megawatts more of energy efficiency over our history. And again, we exist to help utilities deploy distributed capacity on their grid for the benefit of the grid and ultimately to fulfill their core charter of bringing low-cost, reliable energy. One thing that's easy to forget about electric utilities is that they are an extension of us, of our society. They are public purpose monopolies. They are not unregulated monopolies. They are regulated to public purpose to provide a fundamental foundation to our societies and communities, including the building we're standing in. So, why does that matter? Utilities exist to support economic growth and human flourishing. We invented them for that purpose. And when load growth comes, it comes because society wants more stuff, whether that's data centers and generative AI, whether it's your phones and cloud computing, whether it's manufacturing, electric vehicles, all the things that power the modern world are powered by electric power. And right now, in these United States, we are entering an unprecedented and exciting moment of load growth to which our utilities will have to respond. That's true in the grids that have the most capacity today, and it's true in communities like Santa Barbara, whose grids are fragile because of the very nature of the place that they are in. So, utilities across the country are starting to simply go out and procure capacity. They're doing that with large solar farms, with wind farms, with new transmission. They're doing it with gas plants. They're also starting to realize, and very simply put, that distributed capacity, some of the products and ideas that you're hearing here today, are actually going to become a critical part of the US electric grid. And that is a shift. Just a few years ago, it was very rare for a utility to believe that distributed energy could be a big part of the grid for a very simple reason. They are chartered by society to buy lowest cost, most reliable power. And small pieces of power generating equipment for a long time have been higher cost and less reliable. They make the grid harder to run. But when the grid needs to grow, if it needs to grow fast, and because of the incredible work that people in this industry have done, we have dropped the price, we have increased the reliability, we've invented new tools and software and business models that now make distributed capacity ready for prime time. And our vision, SparkFund's vision, as well as the DOE's and the liftoff report that Sonali helped update, is that distributed capacity could be 10 or 20% of a future US electric grid, right? That is an incredible shift in the potential and scale of what we're talking about, and it means that these solutions of distributed capacity can and should be a critical part of how the US electric grid doubles to meet economic development and support our communities and make our grid more reliable and hardened to the worst effects of climate change. So a distributed capacity procurement, very simple. Again, I really believe, and I mean this, it's not false humility, the least innovative idea today. Simply put, distributed capacity, now that in some cases it can be lowest cost and most reliable, put it into the system of central planning, whether that's integrated resource planning or anything else. Let a utility who knows their grid best say where they want this capacity, how much, of what type, right? Do they need dragon wings? Do they need boat planes? I really do love the boat planes. It's like distracting. I was sitting there watching their presentation. I was like, I'm just going to talk about the boat plane. Which is happening now. So a distributed capacity procurement, again, simply says a utility knows their grid, they know where they need it, they know how much they need, and it gives them the authority, which they currently do not have in California. It gives them the authority to go buy it and then to build a local competitive ecosystem so that everyone in this room and many who are in this region can bid into those procurements, and it turns American Electric Utilities into the largest wholesale buyer right, with a competitive value chain. So these are small companies, DR providers, right? These are folks in this room bidding in and solving one of the critical barriers to deploying this stuff at scale, which is it is hard and slow to get customers to buy this stuff. It is hard and slow to get them to pay attention. If a utility buys it and makes it free, you are going to a customer and doing similar to an incredible model that Base Power has in Texas, you're showing up and giving it to them for free. In some states, we're even paying customers to take these assets. So let's think about where that could end up. Simple thought experiment. Right? How many buildings out of 100, if you go to 100 building owners who have day jobs, who have their own capital concerns and constraints, and you say out of 100 buildings, how many of them are willing to pay their hard-earned money and time to do sustainability, resilience, or some other non-cert, right? Maybe 3 out of 100, Tim, right? There are a lot of people in this room who know the answer through hard blood, sweat, and tears, right? It's 3 out of 100, it's, maybe 10 out of 100. How many out of 100 buildings like more money every month from a utility for having an asset on their premise, right? How many people like money and are struggling to pay the rent, or small businesses who have some extra space behind their building, right? And would be willing to take a no debt, no maintenance check to have a battery pulled up into their backyard or a Dragon Wing in their parking lot? Well, the answer in many cases is 70 to 90 out of 100, and I'll get to that in a minute in some of these deployments. But let's say that you had a utility going to a warehouse and deploying 1 megawatt of solar and storage. Maybe you have to overbuild that a little bit, it gets rated down, but let's just say it's a megawatt of rated capacity. All you'd have to do is go to 500 buildings in an area, and you'd have 500 megawatts of new capacity, right? That is a utility scale gas plant or power plant. And if 50 utilities did that every year, all of a sudden, you would be deploying 2% of the US electric grid every year. So distributed capacity can add up into a fundamental game changer for the scale and speed of deploying these solutions to meet the challenge of climate change, of grid hardening, of economic development, and ultimately to align with affordability. You can also see that grid planning is difficult because utilities have to guess how much power they'll need in the future. How many data centers? How many people will use AI, right? What manufacturing plants will come to a state? Well, having distributed capacity as a tool in the grid growth toolkit means you can smooth the curves. You don't have to build a staircase to an unpredictable future. You can build a smooth ramp. And every month you can choose to deploy more or less of these solutions, one building owner at a time. And there are a lot of benefits. This actually aligns with affordability, because I think as a lot of people in this room have a great deal of expertise to testify to. Batteries are cheaper than upgrading substations. Batteries are cheaper than avoiding transformer overloads. They're cheaper than undergrounding lines. So in many cases, this is, again, not the whole solution, but if you made distributed capacity 10 to 20% of a growing grid, you actually are spending less money than the other available alternatives. It's more reliable for obvious reasons. It deploys clean energy. It supports stronger communities. It means that the lights stay on. There's abundant power to support the things that people want to do in their daily lives and economic development. And also, again, it's faster to build small things than one big thing. Okay, so a couple of frameworks. What does a utility need to actually pick this up? They need to plan it, deploy it. She's right behind me. Plan it, deploy it, and dispatch it. SparkFund's the deployment layer, but a lot of folks in this industry have great planning tools. The utilities themselves know their grid best, and there are a lot of DERMS providers out there. One last quick point, because I'm last. We did this right down the road in San Diego Gas and Electric. We went out to customers at the end-of-line communities like Shelter Valley and Temecula. We were walking into trailer parks where people were paying $1,100 a month in energy and $900 to rent their trailer. Their power was going out for 72 hours at a time in PSPS shutoff events. iPads were running out of energy, air conditioners were going off, kids were screaming. This is a human dignity issue in context of rural poverty in California, which does exist. We were showing up and saying, we are your utility. We are here to fulfill our charter of low-cost, reliable power. We are going to give you a free gas generator or battery system, and we're going to keep the lights on for free. And a lot of those residents said, I never thought that would happen for my family. I see my richer neighbors driving to Costco and buying $20,000 generators, and they have the lights on. Their kids' iPads are charged, their air conditioner's on. But we helped a utility show up for those people and keep the lights on when it matters most in context of the vulnerability to climate change. This is about people, and this is what energy is for. We had a 94% customer acceptance rate. We were installing 30 projects a month with a 1% variance to time and budget, because local companies all over that region showed up and bid into this procurement, and they did a damn good job installing it and helping people keep the lights on. That's what a DCP can be, and I think we should bring it here to Santa Barbara.